This is so fun because now we're going to start stepping into more and more tech. And so with that, I'm going to bring up Chris G from Chris G Consulting, and he's got some stuff, y'all. He's got over here. So when he comes up, because he's like live teching everything, I think that's the scientific word, live teching. So you all are going to do what for him? Like roar, like. Okay, I'm just gonna spell it out for you. So when he comes up, you're gonna go like bananas, okay? And you know why? You know why? You're gonna treat him like a rock star because, fun fact, he was in Will Smith's first rap band, not lying. Chris G, everybody.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, it's absolutely true. Will owes it all to me, so I keep waiting for that check to arrive in the mail. It hasn't come yet, but, I'm hopeful. I've got some time. Thank you guys all for being here. Just as, Christine mentioned, we're going to talk about a little bit of technology. We're going to talk about something that's been on all of our minds lately, and that is AI, right? How do you really harness AI and make it your digital doppelganger, right? So just a little bit about me. My name is Chris G. I am the CEO and founder of Chris G Consulting. I've spent most of my career, the past 2.5 decades or so, I'm a little older than I look, as an agency executive working for some of the top PR agencies in the industry, from Teneo to Finsbury Glover Sard, to most recently Edelman, where I ran digital for the US corporate and public affairs. So I did all the digital stuff for all the corporate and B2B folks. Which allows me to be here because I understand how to take all of this fancy technology and translate it into practical things that you can do for business, internal communications, et cetera. And then also, I just wanted to note, all of the things that I'm going to present to you today are going to be shown up on, or available up on my website. So if you go to chrisg.me/Ragan, the link to the download to the PDF for this presentation is there, so you don't have to worry about taking copious notes. You can just stay focused on me, which is how I like it. Okay, so some objectives for today. We're going to talk about how to really think about AI use. For communicators, AI is a little bit more complicated than it is for other folks because there are two aspects to it. There's how you actually use it in your daily workflow, right? How you use it to make yourself more efficient, to do some of the things that you need to do in your job. And then there's also some of the issues around AI, right? Some of the ethical considerations, and there are a bunch of them. So you guys are dealing with how to use it, and then you're dealing with how when people use it and they don't use it the right way, and then they call you up and you got to clean up the mess, right? Does that sound familiar to anybody? No, not at all? Yes, it does, right? It's happened probably a number of times for you already. So we'll talk about some of those considerations and how to think about them. We're also going to provide an overview of content tools, right? I'm going to show you some of the tools that I find the most useful, that some of my clients have really found useful. Some of them are gated, some of them are non-gated, right? Publicly available, and then also private for enterprise, et cetera. And then we're going to have a little bit of fun, right? I think you guys all saw on the agenda that this is an interactive session, so it won't just be me up here talking all the time. About 20 minutes in or so, I'm going to stop. I'm going to give you guys an assignment. I'm going to give you a QR code that'll allow you to download a PDF outlining the assignment. I'm going to give you 20 whole minutes to do a whole bunch of stuff that you could never get done in 20 minutes, right? But you will be able to get it done in 20 minutes because you're going to have your digital doppelganger with you, and that's ChatGPT, right? So really quickly, just as a show of hands, how many people here currently use AI in their workflow? Okay, that's most everybody. How many of you would say that, show of hands, would say that you use AI in an advanced manner? Show of hands. So only a few people, right? So most of us are using AI, but we're really not getting the most out of it, right? And that's probably for a number of different reasons. So during our interactive session, I'm just going to share a few things as you go through the assignment that you can think of that'll help you to kind of get more out of your use of not just ChatGPT, but AI in general, okay? Along with some of the tools that we're going to look at. Okay, housekeeping, just a few rules. I realize that I stand before you and lunch The only less desirable spot is standing between you and your flights, right? So I'm going to try to be as efficient with my time and your time as possible. Another one, many of the images that I've used in this deck were generated by AI, including the headshot from the slides before that, you know, the handsome gentleman that was on those slides, generated by AI, not me, right? Fun fact about AI headshots, they don't really make you look much better. They just kind of put you in better outfits and better, you know, environments and things like that. I was very disappointed. And then the last thing is or the second to last thing, if you have questions, ask them, right? I'm going to hopefully try and answer all of your questions as we go through this. But if I mention some terms, if I talk about some concepts that you're really just not familiar with, put those up, and we'll make sure that we get a microphone over to you so we can ask, because if you have a question, it's more than likely that someone else has a question too. And then the last part I'm going to be a really big stickler on, right? We got to have fun, right? This is not the drudgery. We're not doing spreadsheets here or anything, people. We're not doing budgets. This is fun stuff. We're going to look at some technology. We're going to look at some oopsies from some high-profile people and maybe some low-profile people that you didn't know about. None of it's going to be us, so we can have fun at their expense, right? Right. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about AI's impact on PR and how we use it, right? I already talked a little bit about like the dreaded phone call or email when someone made a boo-boo or whatever, but let's talk about AI in general and what we mean when we talk about AI. Really, when we talk, I mean, we've had AI for a long time. AI isn't anything new. We've had it in our phones. Many of us have it in our cars. We see it in our email clients that autocomplete sentences for us. We've seen it in a lot of different applications. But what we've been talking about, probably for the past year and a half, when we talk about AI, has mostly centered around generative AI. And what's really significant about generative AI is that it can create content that's really, really close to something that a human would create. And this is the first time that we've really seen that, right? So that's what's really why it's really significant. And then the other part of why it's really significant is that it's advancing really, really quickly, right? And a bunch of you are nodding your heads because you acknowledge that and you can see. So how do we really think about how we use it, and how do we really think about how we should use it in our organizations? My operating principle that I use for not only for my own consultancy, but also for my clients is that think about AI as a co-pilot, not autopilot. Don't let AI do your work for you, right? Think about it as, I almost like to think about AI as a really, really knowledgeable intern who just happens to have access to a ton of facts, right, and information, but also will just make things up if they don't know the answer, just like my toddler would, right? That's AI. That's AI, you know, and see, doppelganger was a lot shorter than that, so that we just went with doppelganger. But that's how you should think about AI, as a co-pilot. It can help you do things. For me, the outcome for how we should look about AI is saving an hour or two here and there, right? And I remember giving a workshop a few months ago, and someone says, like, well, Chris, like, is it really worth it if it's just going to save an hour here or there? Yes, right? How many times have we thought, man, I wish I had another hour to finish this thing. It'd be perfect, right? Man, I wish I had another hour in the day to get half the stuff I need to get done. How many times have we thought, I wish I had an hour just to take a doggone nap, just to unplug and just decompress a little bit from all the stuff I got on my shoulders, right? So saving an hour here or there really helps. And I remember in my last role at Edelman, a big chunk of my day, every day, was creating slides, right? I'd have my day mapped out, and I'd say, okay, here's what I'm going to be doing, and then somebody call or email or Teams me and say, hey, urgent request, we need some slides for a new business pitch or whatever. We've got to have it by, of course, not next week, but like end of day today, right? So I'd be taking the same information, taking something that was in 10 slides and crunching it down to 2 slides, taking something that's in 2 slides and expanding it to 5 slides. It would take me hours every single day. And then when I figured out how to use AI in my workflow, I shaved off like 1, sometimes 2 hours a day. When I would get those requests, I could do what would take me 2 hours in about a half an hour. It felt like cheating, right? But it wasn't, because I had a good workflow and I had good guardrails around what I was doing. Another thing I want to say is that, and this is really important, we should think about AI as a good source of first drafts only. If you use what's in AI and sort of like take it and put it out without massaging it and really heavily editing it, you'll be calling Chris G Consulting for crisis work instead of for AI training and implementation, right? And that's for a lot of different reasons, not just the governance factors or what have you. The AI was trained, like big large language models like ChatGPT, Gemini, et cetera, were trained on all of the internet, everything that's publicly available, all of social media, right, that's publicly available, but without the author's consent. So there are plagiarism issues. There is IP and consent issues. The courts can't keep up with all this stuff. The courts are still trying to figure out social media, right? They're still in Web 2.0. So when you start talking about generative AI, they really haven't figured out yet how to deal with some of those issues legally, right? So there's a big gray area that's involved. There are issues around disclosure. My guiding principle about that is in AI usage in general is when in doubt, disclose, right? Disclose that you're using it. Disclose how you're using it, right? In every step of the way, whether it's imagery, whether it's audio, whether it's written word, right? I think just disclose and be as honest as possible saves lots of problems down the road. We already talked about some of the issues that comms pros have to deal with, but sometimes when you do everything right, things still go wrong. One of my clients is a publishing company, and one of the things that they publish is science fiction titles. So they did the right thing. They bought an image for a sci-fi cover from Shutterstock or one of those stock photography companies, and they thought, okay, we're doing the right thing, we're getting the rights and all that kind of stuff, and we're above board. Little did they know that the artist who sold that image to Shutterstock used a generative AI tool called Midjourney, which generates stunning imagery. How many people have heard of Midjourney? All right? If any of you who works with Midjourney a lot? Does anybody work with Midjourney quite a bit? No one? Okay, well if you did, you'd be able to spot those images right away. There's a distinct look that after a certain amount of exposure, you can tell right away. So of course, as soon as the cover became public, people took to Twitter, which they always do. It's always coming for you on Twitter, right? They took to Twitter and they said, hey, this publishing company is shortcutting using human artists in favor of AI. That's wrong. They're cutting us out. They're using AI. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case at all. Our client thought they were buying it from an artist, and instead, that found out the artist used AI and didn't disclose. So I think that disclosure about usage is super important, and a lot of companies, all of your organizations, are probably going to need to sit down and figure out how we go through that and what that looks like, et cetera, because otherwise there are lots of trouble down the road. I mean, my client, thankfully didn't turn into a huge thing, but one of the learnings coming out of that is that there are a lot of fears around AI. There are a lot of fears about being replaced by AI. And little things like that, which aren't really seen as little things to other people, can have a big ripple effect. I'll have a very good example for you guys about that in a few minutes. Oh, and the other thing, AI hallucinates. Does anyone know what I'm talking about when I say AI hallucinates? Yeah? Okay, so most hands didn't go up. I'll give you an example. Don't be this guy, okay? He is a New York lawyer who had a case before a federal judge. His client was injured by an airline, and it got all the way up to the federal courts, and his daughter told him about ChatGPT. He hadn't heard about it before, and apparently he thought it was wonderful. So he used it to create his legal briefs. Now, little did he know that AI can hallucinate. Well, Chris, what do you mean by that? What I mean by that is that as wonderful and amazing as AI is, it's not human intelligence, it's artificial intelligence. When you ask ChatGPT to do something, or any generative AI tool to do something, it is basically doing a statistical analysis on the fly based on the string of words that you gave it and coming up with the most statistically probable answer based on everything that it's already been fed, right? So if the answer leads to something it hasn't already been fed, sometimes it makes it up. As it did in this case, it made up a few cases that he was using as case law to support his legal argument in his brief. And as you can probably imagine, he's in hot water now. He's been sanctioned by a judge. He had to come out and say that he was humiliated. And the court said it's okay to use ChatGPT or generative AI tools as part of your work product, but specifically the judge said, you're responsible, right? You're responsible for the output, and you're responsible for quality control. So what he should have done is he should have checked it more closely and made sure that those were actual cases as opposed to just copy, paste into a Word document, send it off, and then go to court, right? So AI hallucinates. It will give you an answer. It's not always the right answer. It's going to give you an answer that it believes mathematically is right based on everything that it's been fed. Another example I want to share with you guys is a controversy around OpenAI's new visual video generator called Sora. How many of you have heard of Sora? Okay, so half of you have heard of it, half of you have not. The half of you who have not, get ready to have your socks knocked off, okay? So I'm going to show you guys a little video. Sora can create amazing, breathtaking prompts from, or a video from a very, very simple prompt. So you can see right here this really stunning imagery of this woman walking down the streets. That was generated by you can see the prompt right down there below. I expand that prompt in about a minute in the video, or in about 10 seconds in the video. And you can see what little bit of information was necessary to generate this stunning imagery, right? So here I go. Look at that. That's it. That's it. That's all you have to do to tell Sora to create an image like that. The next one, woolly mammoths. None of us has ever seen a woolly mammoth, right? Sora just created it just from probably like 4 or 5 lines of text. This is probably one of the shortest prompts. I've done proposals that had bigger prompts, right? Look at this. I don't even know what this is, but it's kind of amazing, right? I want to go see that movie. Look at that. From that little bit of information. And then this one, Big Sur, I'll talk about this in a second. But look how breathtaking that is, right? That's amazing. Some of you guys were just talking in the Q&A session after the previous speaker. Oh, and I can't, I had to show this one, right? I mean, come on. Fluffy, furry monster, how can you not love that, right? And that's what it generated, which is just stunning. But a few of you I noticed mentioned in the Q&A session from the previous session that, listen, I'd love to do video. We all know that video is very engaging, but I don't have the budgets, right? And I'm guessing that probably most of you guys don't have the budgets you really would love to have in order to do really compelling content, right? Well, on the one hand, that's where AI can come in hand, right? There are lots of AI tools that can help you come up with video, generative video, that doesn't require the type of budget that you would have needed even 2 years ago. Now, of course, there are some issues, right? This particular Sora, one of the challenges and one of the controversies is that it's being trained on content and video content from YouTube. Well, that's part of a problem because almost everything on YouTube was created by individual creators and companies who didn't consent to having their content train this large language model. Right? And then, of course, people are going to use it to make money that isn't going to go back to the people who helped train the software, right? So that's a big ethical issue right there. But also, not everyone in the creative community is really excited about this, right? These are a couple of headlines from Tyler Perry. He's done tons of movies, produced and starred in and directed tons of movies and has a huge studio in Atlanta, Georgia. And he was planning on spending $800 million to expand his studio in Atlanta. And then when Sora came out, almost like the next day, he shut down those plans because he said, this innovation is going to cost jobs. He said, I know studios, and they're going to use this innovation to cut out actors, to cut out directors, to cut out sound technicians, et cetera. And you know what? He's probably right. So it starts to bring questions to bear. How do we use it? Do we think about AI as just something to trim costs and get rid of people? Or do we think about AI as a way to do things that we couldn't do, to do more, to give more value? Food for thought. If I had all the answers, I wouldn't be standing here. I'd be someplace like Davos, right? But it's something for everyone to consider because I think that it's a harder question to answer than you can really do in a very short session. So on that happy, wonderful note, we're going to get into some demos, right? I know that we all have to create content. I know that we all have shoestring budgets. I know that some of you have constraints that maybe some others don't in terms of what you are allowed to use and what you're not allowed to use in terms of AI tools and software. So I'm going to go through, and I'm going through a mix of tools, and there are some videos here, and then I'm also going to share just a list of some tools and categories that you may or may not necessarily be aware of, okay? Okay, so when you think about some of these tools, you get really, the way I talk to companies and say, you know, when we think about AI integration is taking a look at your tech stack, right? All of the tools that you have available to you, from the Microsoft suite to Adobe, to any of the SaaS tools that you might be using, et cetera, right? How do you think about integrating AI tools into that stack to help you achieve your goals? Currently, I don't see any one-size-fits-all solution, right? I think that where we are right now, especially as communicators, is it's a mixed bag. You're probably going to find that some companies like Microsoft have a suite of tools, and some of them are really good and applicable to what you're trying to do, and some of them aren't really, you know? So in some cases, you're going to have to supplement with some external tools. And I think that as you do that, you have to think about your organization. Some companies have a much higher risk toleration than others. And also, some companies have much more stringent security and privacy constraints than others. So you have to take all that into consideration when you think about what tools you're going to bring onto your stack. Okay, so in terms of content generation tools, you know, here are some that I like, right? So, you know, Adobe has a great suite. I think that one of the things that makes it really valuable is that sort of compare it to Sora, compare it to Midjourney, DALL-E, some of these other tools, it draws from its vast library of stock photography, right? So that already provides a measure of security for someone, you know, in internal communications or even external communications, and that you don't have to worry that it's pulling something from someone who didn't consent. It's going to later send you a cease and desist letter, right? It's pulling from stock photography. You can license that photography if you want to use that artwork, and it's really helpful. Same with Photoshop AI, and I'll show you a demo of that in a second. A couple of others that I think that are interesting and to bring up, Jasper, right? Some folks, for some communicators, ChatGPT is there's just a little bit too much work that you have to do, and it doesn't really have a workflow, right? So if you're not a power user, it's not very intuitive in terms of an interface. Jasper is a lot better at being able to bring AI into a workflow suite that involves lots of different things, and you can even train your company voice within the system. You can do that with ChatGPT, but that's sort of power user type stuff. And then also, I think Microsoft Copilot is also really good. Like I said before, it brings a whole bunch of things together. Most of us are using it anyway. So therefore, you've got it in your suite to be able to upgrade, to bring in the Copilot technologies. If they work for you, for what you need, I think are fantastic. Okay. So here are a few that I'm going to go over. Well, I'm not going to go over all of those, but just a couple of them. Okay. So here's Jasper, and I did mention Jasper. So in this video, I'm going to show kind of like what you can do and what you can generate with a simple prompt, one that most people use, and then follow it up with like how you can use it to generate more detailed content from a more detailed prompt, okay? So here you can see I just kind of said, okay, let's just create some blog content, or I think I said LinkedIn content. I'm going to go in and just copy and paste just a few bullets, right? We'll do 2024 instead of 2004, because I'm not speaking 20 years ago. Although that would be really cool if we could do that, right? And then see what that output looks like. All right, just a few options, boom. And so it spits out something that, in my opinion, it's okay. I mean, actually, kind of sucks, right? It's like, you know, we did all that, and that's all it gave me. I could have done that, right? So here's what happens if you are a little bit more thoughtful and give it more information. And I like to give ChatGPT and generative AI tools a lot more. Oh, hang on a second, let me get that playing. a lot more information to be able to kind of like get more detail out of it, right? So here now, you see now we've got a lot more bullets, right? And I'm giving it more direction. Here's more about Chris. Give this type of tone. Give it this kind of framework, etc. So now, and then also on top of that, I'm giving a little bit more about like what some of the company's goals. I think that Jasper does a great job of taking you through a lot of different things in its wizard as you're putting together the prompts for the content itself. And then we hit enter. So as you can see, it's generating more content, more copy, and a lot more detail, right? Now you can just imagine if this wasn't just a quick demo, you could really come up with a structured prompt if it was a real situation or something that you had a lot more detail for a press release or for an announcement or a holding statement or whatever, an internal announcement or whatever it might be. But if you get this right and figure out like the cadence and type of information and the flow that your organization needs and then train that into the company voice, now you've saved yourself a lot of time. So it's a little bit of time up front to train it, but then on the back end, life is beautiful. You're getting out of work every day at 4 o'clock. You're going to be the first one at the soccer game and everything, so it's wonderful. Okay, with all the talk about generative AI tools, for me, I think that like as a now recovering creative director and a recovering graphic designer, the most common use cases are things like this, and I'm sure probably for communicators, you probably get this too. You get, somebody went out, one of the executives probably went and spoke at a conference just like this, and you need a landscape image, but they came back with a portrait-size image, right? So now you go to the art team and you say, hey, look, guys, can you do something like, what do you want me to do with this, right? So this is one of the great things about the Photoshop AI, is that you can go in, right? I can select myself, or I can say, okay, I want a landscape type portrait. All right, so we go ahead and make that bigger, right? Okay, so now it's bigger, but hey, I've got all this white space on the side. What are we going to do about that, right? What it does is a really great job of selecting me, right? And then I create the inverse, and so I basically select the area around me, and then I can go in and just give it a simple prompt. In this case, I just say New York City skyline, right? So instead of me in front of this gray background, let's put me in front of a New York City skyline. Boom, right? There we go. There we go. All right? And if I don't like those, it comes up with 3 options right off the bat. And if I don't like those 3 options, I can just hit generate again, and it'll give me 3 more. So as you can see, there's now 6 instead of 3. And I can cycle through all of those. Now, the great thing about this is, especially for when you're coming up with things, coming up with concepts and things like that, it's the concept thing that takes all the time, right? Because you're going to come up with all these concepts. Typically, you're only going to choose one, and then all the rest of the time you spent on those concepts is wasted time. So being able to use a tool like this is great. And then even if you pick that image sort of in the background, you can go, you don't have to pick that exact image. We know we want one. We know we want, a skyscraper in the background, et cetera, Empire State Building or so. So you can just go ahead and then replace that with stock if you want. Okay. So I think we're just about, I think we're just about the right time. So I'm going to now kind of like stop this portion, and we're going to get you guys, get your blood flowing, get you guys doing something. So just out of curiosity, I know there were a bunch of hands that went up. Almost everybody's using ChatGPT in the room. How many people are using GPT-4? Okay, so there's a good, maybe about 30% of you guys. How many of you guys have ChatGPT on your computers right now, where you're sitting? Almost everybody. Are there any tables where nobody has ChatGPT? One right here, one right here, one right there. Okay. So, so for this portion, could some of you who have someone who has ChatGPT come over to a table where they don't? Oh, you have it. Okay, you guys. Okay, so you do have it. All right. So can you keep the hands up for the tables that don't have it? Because what we're going to do is we're going to get a volunteer to come over to your table and sit with you guys. So in the not even 20 minutes that we have, I'm going to give you guys a comms plan, ostensibly from your CEO, right? And this is also covered in the download I'm going to give you guys. But you're going to come up with If you download this PDF, you'll get the assignment, okay? And so basically, it's a recall announcement from your CEO, right? Who's super hair on fire, right? And wants this stuff, like wants to see drafts yesterday. So you've got to come up with a whole bunch of content in no time, right? You never get requests like that, right? That never happens. And Chris, what are you talking about? Okay, so based on the assignment, I'll put the QR code back up in a second. You're going to use ChatGPT to come up with a comms plan for a product recall. You want to obviously come up with the main message, an FAQ session, a press release, 3 sample stakeholder emails, right? And obviously we want to emphasize ethical considerations and customer empathy. And we'll talk about it when I'll give you guys about 10 minutes or so, a lot of time, and then we'll talk about sort of how you came up with it. Now, your CEO really doesn't want this, right? So we're trying to have fun, and I think the main thing is to figure out how you can kind of really attack it, right? Based on what we've been talking about, how can you give ChatGPT enough information to be able to spit out all of those different deliverables? Make sense? Yes? Everybody excited? Pumped? Woohoo! All right. I'll walk around and see if anybody needs any help. Who was able, were any of you guys able to kind of get ChatGPT to give you all the stuff that I requested already? Show of hands. Any tables? Any tables? You guys? You guys were able to get it? Okay. All right. Anybody else? Anybody else able to get? You guys get? Okay, great. Any other tables? We got 2 over here. Any other tables were able to get ChatGPT to give everything from the assignment? Kind of, sort of, ish. Okay. All right. That still works. The CEO didn't really call, so we're still good. We're still good. Anybody else? You guys too? All right. Anybody just flame out? Did anybody just if we just do it, it just totally didn't work? No? Oh, you guys? Couldn't get it to work? Okay. All right, so who has something interesting to share about the assignment and sort of what you were able to get ChatGPT to do? I know a few of you guys, a bunch of tables were able to get ChatGPT to do the assignment. Does anyone want to say something about what they thought was interesting, what worked, what didn't? Anything you'd like to share? Or does anybody have any questions? Like, dude, seriously? Like, what the heck? I thought this was supposed to be fun. Yeah, back there.
We gave very minimal information, and it was cool and kind of scary how it just made stuff up.
Yeah. And that's the interesting thing about it is that it's good. So the thing about ChatGPT and any generative AI if it's been fed on a bunch of examples, it's really good. So it's really good at things that have a formula, right? So if you ask it for something and it's been fed a bunch of those examples in the past, then you're going to get better results. So sometimes it's good to prompt it and say, give me something, X, like give me a whatever in this format, start with an upfront about 300 words or whatever it is, give me 8 bullet points, whatever it might be. Just be really specific and you'll get even better results. So, but yeah, you can sometimes, depending on what it is, when you give it an open-ended prompt, you'll get something really close, and other times it'll be like, oh my God, this is a waste of time. Yep. Yep.
So you're using a second app to try to humanize and put the kind of touch to be really empathetic with your stakeholders, and then you can move by yourself, taking the job and be much more productive with the specific point of view.
Yep.
Technology enabler and human.
I'm going to try to restate the question, Sarah. So basically, she was saying that you have to basically tell ChatGPT to humanize the output, the content that it puts out. You either you do that, prompt it to do that, and tell it, show empathy. You can even feed it examples. Give it examples of things that you thought did a good job of humanizing content, and say do something and echo this tone, right? Strike this type of tone or whatever. If not, then to your point, then you either have to do it yourself or you have to bring it into another tool to do it. But I would say that most of the ChatGPT, Gemini, Jasper, the tools that I've seen do a pretty good job of that, but you do have to prompt, you have to be very specific, and the more examples you give it, the more accurate it's going to be, because to your point, even human eyes can be, or empathy can be very different depending on who we're talking to, right? So if you're talking to a very specific audience, internal stakeholders, et cetera, and there's a very certain type of thing that happened that's going on in the organization that's got nerves very frayed, you've got to really kind of give that type of information and that type of prompt to get the right tone from it. But I think that's right. It's not human. It's AI. It's not human intelligence. Anybody else?
It's actually right along those lines. We learned from each other that if you create like a persona as you're putting it in, which we learned, thank you very much, by the way, that, you are this. You are an empathetic, experienced communications leader, blah, blah, blah. And then what you're going to get is going to be a lot more, it's going to come across much more like a person. Also, that you can attach the damn PDF. That was fabulous. We did not know that. That was a great little learning at our table. So.
She raised two really great points. Tell ChatGPT, you are a whatever. Sometimes I do this, and I did this back in my previous role, and sometimes I do it now. I would say if I'm going to meet with the CEO of a company of a certain size and a certain industry, I'll say, you are the CEO of this company. And I'll give all the specifics, maybe not necessarily the name of the company, but it doesn't matter, right? You're the CEO of this particular company with all these specifics. I'm coming in to talk to you about X. What are the questions you're going to have? Here's my proposal that I gave you. What are the questions that you'd have? And it does a really good job when you give it that level of specificity. But also, and I didn't want to make it too easy for you, but you can upload, if you have GPT-4, if you have the ChatGPT Plus, you can actually upload documents, PDFs, et cetera. And then it'll read the document and then do a much better job of adhering to the instructions. So that's a little bit, you've done a little bit 2.0 instead of 1.01 over here. But yes, that's also a great one. Yeah.
I'll just try to speak loud. You're blowing my mind, like with all of this stuff. I have a question going on to some of the visual AI technology.
Yep. Yeah. Last one because I think we're at time. Yeah.
Can we add our own brand elements?
Hi. So about visual AI that you showed, like video or images,
Yep.
Can we add our own brand identity for
Yes.
that? Oh my God. Okay.
You can. Yeah, there are tools like in video that allow you to do that. There are also tools for podcasting, Riverside, et cetera, that allow you to put your logos up there and brand colors or whatever. So there are a bunch of tools that allow you to put branding and put brand voice and all those brand colors, guidelines, everything in there.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yep. So I think we're at time. Thank you guys so much. I know your stomachs are growling right now. You can't wait to get outside and get the food. Thank you very much. And once again, if you have any questions or whatever on my website, you can download the document.